Coverage you can count on continues with Drew Blair.
Well, people across the nation this morning are in need of help cleaning up communities, not just from natural disaster, but also to spruce up their areas.
The Red Cross's National Volunteer Week kicks off today and will go all week long. Here to talk about that is the local Red Cross CEO, Kay Ostrom. Kay, we want to hear more about what National Volunteer Week's all about.
National Volunteer Week is a great time for us for two things. We want to recognize our volunteers every day, but on that week, it's a very special week. Thursday night, we will give out our annual awards for those exceptional volunteers that have really gone above and beyond what we expect. And then it's also a time, I think, for people to reflect on their own time and how they want to volunteer, and maybe make a commitment in this next year to volunteer for the agency that has their heart.
I'm sure not enough can be said for how meaningful volunteers are to organizations like yours.
We could not do what we do. There's about 15 volunteers for every paid employee, and volunteers make it for us. We just couldn't do what we do without volunteers.
How does someone become a Red Cross volunteer?
Well, I tell people just to go onto the website, www.redcross.org, put in your zip code, and your local chapter will come up for the Red Cross. That's how you would do that. You can go on Volunteer Match. And I always want to say that every social service agency in our area needs volunteers. We all rely on volunteers. So in the Red Cross, we can usually use every single skill that a person has. We have a variety of jobs for them to do, but if they have an agency that has their heart, go there, volunteer. Everybody is needed, and you can make a difference in our community.
Of course, the Red Cross did have a surge of volunteer interest just a month ago when tornadoes hit in southern Indiana. How is cleanup going down in the Henryville area?
You know, the Red Cross is there for the emergency needs, so as long as people need shelters, we're there. As long as they need food, we're there for that. There are other agencies now, I know, that are rallying to go down and do in the recovery phase for the rebuilding phase. Red Cross is there for their immediate needs. And I have to tell people, be prepared. You know, get informed, be informed, build a kit, get the supplies laid in, and listen to the weather forecast and take heed of all the warnings. It could happen anywhere, and if you're prepared, maybe that's your insurance, you know, that it's not going to hit.
Right.
So.
And we're talking about lots of severe weather this morning across the plains from last night, more today. Do people who volunteer, I mean, some people may have the opportunity to travel to these disasters, but is that what every volunteer, you know, what signs up for? How does that all work from your end?
For the Red Cross, it takes about 40 hours of training. You know, we will send people from here. We did send people from Fort Wayne to Henryville. In the southern Indiana, we had about 80 trained volunteers down there. Not here from Fort Wayne, but from Indiana. You know, that was like 12 states that were involved in those spring storms. We do that. It's very standard training. People can come together from California and Florida and be in Indiana and work together. They have the same language. So people need to take that training ahead of time. We do deploy people who are trained. And then we have spontaneous volunteers who are there at the scene that those trained volunteers can help. But be prepared. I know people want to help. I know people, you know, want to run out and help, but don't go right away, because it just makes more of an effort. If a volunteer goes there, then we have to feed them too. And we may not be ready to help because we don't even know what the damage is yet. So it takes a few days before we actually know how volunteers are needed. And that's why the Red Cross is everywhere. So that if it hits anywhere, there's a Red Cross person there that's trained, that knows what to do right away, and then they bring in the other volunteers to help.
Okay, Kay, thank you so much for coming in this morning for the update, and we sure hope you enjoy celebrating your volunteers this week.
Great. Thank you so much for having me.